For this right about here. Right about here. Yeah, man. So, you guys had like a teacher planning day last week. Am I crazy for thinking that? No? Okay. Okay. All right. Does that mean like the end of the 9 weeks is over? Does that mean report cards? Oh, kind of like, yeah. Okay. How are those grades? Thumbs up, thumbs down. All right. Okay. That's what I'm talking about. Anybody got any tests this Friday? Anybody studying? Yeah? You got them study guides? Got any study guides? I tell you what. So, a little random, I promise. It's gonna connect. But man, I love a good study guide. I love study guides because teachers, they teach so much. I mean, they just get up there for an hour and a half and ramble on. And you have no clue what really matters. But when they give you a study guide, now that I can work with that. I had this one class in college, and it was calculus. And I have no business being in calculus. But I had to take calculus to get my degree to graduate. And I decided that I wasn't going to let calculus be the reason I was going to fail out of college. And so by the grace of God and the gift of study guides, I passed that class. You see, I would go to class for an hour, and then I'd go to tutoring for 2. Like, it's cool because if you're confused enough for a tutor, they'll like basically do your homework for you. Pro tip. It's true. So, anywho, so I passed that class. I love study guides. Back to grades. Let's circle back around. Who here's got that good GPA? Who's got a 4.0? No shame. That's quite a few, honestly. I'm impressed. It's impressive. So I, too, once had an impressive GPA. I mean, it was really impressive. My first semester of college, I went to college, and then my first semester, I got a shockingly high 0.08. Yeah, can I get a round of applause for this 0.08? I tell you what, it takes a lot of skipping class and a lot of surfing to get a .08 your first semester of college. And I'll tell you what, I had a lot of fun. That first semester of college. I did not go to a lot of class because the cool thing about college is no one cares if you skip class, and the bad thing about college is no one cares if you skip class. So with a .08 GPA, I realized that my priorities were all jumbled. If I had any chance of staying in college, I would have to get my nose in some books. And so I moved home, and it was a really hard choice. It was aided in the fact that I lost a scholarship or two, but it was a difficult choice, but it was the right choice. Because not only were my grades tanking, my grandpa, who I'm so close with, at the time, he was really sick. I mean, not just like kind of sick, like sniffles sick. I mean, like, hey, we just got a CAT scan and it doesn't look good, kind of talks at the dining room table. And that's not where you want to be your first semester of college. But that's the reality where I found myself in. And I had to do a lot of soul searching in this time because I made some decisions, and they didn't work out. And every decision matters. It can be small things. It can be big things. But every time I skipped class and every time I avoided going home and every time, it had a repercussion. And you think I would have learned better because my grandpa, who I'm so close to, he was married to my grandmother who passed away like 2 summers before my freshman year at college. And I live with them. So you'd think I would get it. I mean, but you know, sometimes it takes a little bit for things to get in your head. So we always we come face to face with choices. It's this or that. And if your priorities are in the right place, more often than not, the decisions you make, you don't even think about. They just happen. Like 80% of every decision you ever make, every action your body takes is automatic. So if your priorities in the right place, you don't have to rely on making every decision right that in the moment. So let's talk about priorities a little bit. Let's talk about it. Because at the end of the day, it's going to matter. One day it's going to matter. It may be when you lose a loved one or a loved one gets sick and you look at your life and you look at your priorities and you're face to face with the repercussions of your own actions. It may be when you have a .08 GPA in college and you're faced to make choices. It may be It may not even hit you. That's the scary thing. It may not even hit you until you're at the end of your life. And you're looking back on your life at the gap between I wish I had and I'm glad I did. When you're looking at that gap, what really matters? It's a haunting question. I admit that. I brought us way down deep in the fields. It's a haunting question. I get it. But it's one we can wrestle with. And for those of us who are willing to listen, who have ears to hear, I believe God has something for us to hear. So let's turn to Luke 6, verse 27 through 36 for some answers. I've got my YouVersion app. Anybody got a YouVersion app? It's a great thing. It's a great thing. If you don't have YouVersion, download it. Bible's on your phone. Reason why I didn't use regular Bible is because I use YouVersion so much, I know it better. So here we go. Jesus is here. He's talking about his enemies, okay? He's talking about loving your enemies, which is, I find it hard to, love my family sometimes. So I don't know about loving my enemies, but I know that Jesus, he's working on my heart. But here's how it goes. And we're trying to answer this question, what really matters? What really matters? And Jesus, this is the Sermon on the Plain. It's similar to the Sermon on the Mount, but basically, if you want to get inside the head of the man who changed the world forever, who changed literally the calendar, or the dates. I don't know of any other person who said, from here on out, it's going to be year 0, year AD, It's different. He started a revolution that is part of what now we are a part of. It's the way of life. It's hope. It's the way of love. But if you want to get inside that guy's head, the Son of God, God in the flesh, I'd go right here to this part in Luke 6. But he says, to you who are willing to listen, got to be willing to listen. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you and pray for those who hurt you. Who prayed for those people this week and blessed them? No? I'm not alone? Yeah? A few of us. It's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. Here we go. If someone slaps you on one cheek, offer the other cheek. Also, if someone demands your coat, offer your shirt also. London, if I'm coming for your jersey, your Gulf Breeze jersey, you think you're giving it to me? Am I leaving with a black eye and a bloody nose? Probably. If I'm not leaving on a stretcher. So, it's not easy. It's simple, but not easy. Give to anyone who asks, and when things are taken away from you, don't try to get them back. Do to others as you would like them do to you. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? That sounds a lot like the golden rule. Where would they possibly get the golden rule from? The golden rule that you learned though you're not supposed to have prayer in school and all these other things, the golden rule is hammering into your head from when you're a kindergartner, pre-K. Because it's the basis for a lot of good. So it's do to others as you would like them to do. Then Jesus raises the bar. Jesus was all about raising the bar. And what you need to understand is that's not to shame us. It's to challenge us. Because he loves us enough to know that we can do more, that we were made for more, that we're made in the image of God. And so Jesus always calls us to another level. But it's in the understanding that he's got us. If we miss the mark, it's okay. He's still God. He's still sovereign. So he says, if you love only those who love you, why should you get credit for that? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good only to those who do good to you, why should you get credit? Even sinners do that much. And if you lend money only to those who can repay you, why should you get credit? Even sinners will lend to other sinners for a full return. He's really on one. He's just, I don't know. Sometimes I find it hard to love the people I love. He's calling me to love my enemies. Right here it says it again, love your enemies, do good to them, lend to them without expecting to be repaid. Expect nothing in return. Absolutely earth-shattering. Then your reward from heaven will be very great, and you will truly be acting as children of the Most High, for he is kind to those who are unthankful and wicked. You must be compassionate, just as your Father is compassionate. Man. He lays all that out, and then he sums it up with that really simple sentence. You must be compassionate, just as your Father is compassionate. The only thing is, I'm not God. And neither are you. When somebody hurts me, it sticks with me. I may not even know it sticks with me. I may dig it up in therapy like 20 years later. But it sticks with me. God has this uncanny ability to not only forgive, but to forget. See, once you're forgiven, your sins are as far as the east is from the west. I don't know how far that is, but I think it's pretty far. I don't know. I've been on road trips, but I don't think I've been as far as the east is from the west. And that's because he's God. But again, he's challenging us to raise our thinking, to shift the way we change our day-to-day lives. And that statement, you must be compassionate just as your Father is compassionate. His love has no ending. It's unfathomable. That means you can't even, unfathomable is a term that, a fathom is a measurement. And sailors would drop this rope over the edge of their ship back in the day to figure out exactly how many fathoms it was. A fathom is 6 feet. It's a little knot in the rope. And sometimes they would get to some places, maybe like the Marianas Trench. I mean, some place just super deep, and they would run out of rope. And they'd just say, we don't know. Oh, that's kind of gross. But they'd say, we don't know. It's unfathomable. God's love is so deep, so wide, so big, so strong that we could spend our whole lives trying to grasp it, and we wouldn't even fully get it until we enter the kingdom of heaven when we leave this world. I think that's really cool. But it's all centered on compassion. I think that's why Jesus finishes off that sermon with that part right there. Because the truth is, compassion is the key to a life well lived and a story worth telling. That's what it is. It's worth it. But I'm not gonna lie to you. Just like I was talking about, it's hard for us to love. Showing compassion is simple, not easy. Not easy. And showing compassion actually takes courage. It takes intentionality in our daily walk. So now what? We're here. Compassion's important, but I'm not God. What does it look like? I mean, I'm walking around, I'm not trying to stick my neck out so people can hurt me some more than they already have, put some knives on my back. You know, I got enough to unpack. So what do we do now? I think there's really good news. Because compassion is simple. So I challenge you to see every day as a new chance to leave your lasting mark on this world. That sounds like a big ask. But I promise you it's not. It's as simple as this. Love everybody God puts in front of you. Every single person. That's your one job. Just like reading a page. I don't start in this book and I have to read all the pages at once. That's not what it looks like. I read one word at a time, one line at a time, one page at a time, one chapter at a time, until finally at the end I say, woo, good job. I did it. That's what compassion is. It's simple. We just got to look people in the eyes and see them as human and treat them as such. Because the truth is they deserve it. And so, besides loving everybody God puts in front of you, sometimes we don't even see people. I mean, that's bad. Sometimes we don't even see people. But the truth is, I've got a lot going on. And you've got a lot going on. When you're walking through the halls of your school, you're not looking around for specifics of like a superhero. We're having superhero day on Sunday, and all these kids are going to dress up looking like superheroes. It's going to be great. Middle schoolers are going to wear superhero costumes. But you're not walking around like Clark Kent, ready to jump in for somebody. You've got too much going on. Like I said, you've got study guides, you've got tests, you've got grades, you've got a report card that's crumbled up in your backpack from 2 weeks ago, and you're not sure if you're going to show your parents or not. Anybody? Yeah, been there. But compassion matters. That's what's up. Compassion matters. And so I challenge you also to pray to have eyes to see. Pray to have eyes to see. It's not, you don't have to walk around like Clark Kent. You don't have to be Wonder Woman in the school. But if you can see people and see people who are in need, it makes all the difference. So I challenge you to pray to have eyes to see. And then also pray to have the courage to act, because you're sticking your neck out there for somebody else. But I think if we took that step, we'd find out that it's worth the risk. I mean it. Jesus said it. That settles it. But man, he's raising the bar. So I think it's worth it. So I'm going to give you this quick example. in Montgomery, Alabama, in 1957, there was this Baptist minister who was talking to a congregation of people kind of like this. It was probably a whole lot more. And he said this. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Of all the questions, I mean, that question a lot. But he said life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? And tragically, in 1968, somebody cut this man down, cut his life short, because he had impacted the world that much. That Baptist minister's name that was speaking in 1957, whose life was cut short 11 years later, was a guy by the name of Martin Luther King Jr. Anybody ever heard of him? Yeah? He's in your history books. We have a holiday named after him. His life was cut short, but there's no question he left a legacy that'll last long until after we're gone. And so I have a question, and it's another hard one, but I just want to dream of a nightmare real quick, and then I want us to do a little daydreaming. First off, what would a world look like had Martin Luther King not dedicated his life to loving and serving others? What would that world look like? I guarantee it would look a lot different. A lot different. We have the privilege of growing up where we do now, where we don't see that. But it's because of people like Martin Luther King Jr. who walked that road and showed us that there's a better way, and showed us that surely, no matter what, it's worth the sacrifice if we dedicate our lives to making this world a better place. How shockingly different would our world look? Ooh, I hate to think about it. Honestly do. But now let's think of this. Let's finish on a bright note. What would Gulf Breeze High School look like if we walked through the halls and we saw every person as an opportunity to change the world? Just not the whole world, but just that one person's day. Change that one person's day. To love whoever God puts in front of you. What if we do that? Do you think it'd make a difference if we all did it? I'm foolish enough to think so. And I invite you to join in there with me, because I think we can impact our schools. I think Navarre High School would look different. I think the Navarre High School swim team would look different. I think the Gulf Breeze football team would look different. I think your friend groups would look different. Honestly, I think your families would look different. I think Gulf Breeze would look different. Navarre, this county, this country, this world, you see, because Jesus wasn't about small thinking. He had thoughts that shook the world to its core. And he invites us to join him there with him. So let's feel free to dream. Let's feel free. But before we head to small groups, I'm just about done. But I want to share this one last story of compassion with you. And that story of compassion is the story of Matthew. And Matthew, I won't bore you. Matthew, you don't need to know much about him, but besides the fact, everybody hated him. Everybody hated him. And for good reason. And for really good reason. You see, I've been hated before. I have burned some bridges. But I at least have some people who still like me. I mean, Matthew, he had nobody. And like I said, for good reason. You see, back when in the days where Jesus lived, there was this oppressing force called the Romans. They'd taken over a greater part of the known world. And what Rome wanted, Rome got. And to do that, they would put people in place in positions of power over other people. And so Matthew was one of these people. The only thing was, he was Jewish, and he turned on his own people. Matthew was a traitor. He was a cheat. He had nobody. Completely undesirable. And like I said, this guy traded his own people. He was a traitor. And so if they crucified a Jesus for doing nothing, for being innocent, imagine what they'd do to you if you didn't have the money to pay your taxes. And your taxes always went up. I don't think it was a pretty sight. I don't think I have to imagine very long what gets worse than crucifixion, but they were coming for you. And Matthew was the man behind it. But there was one guy who saw Matthew for who he was. And I think it's really, really, I don't even know what the word would be, what that word would be. It's really comforting, I think. It's comforting to think that no matter what I've done, no matter what I've got wrong, that at the end of the day, there's still one person who loves me. And he loves me for who I am, no matter what. And so that was Jesus. You see, Jesus is God, and he was born as a baby. He came to the world, and he lived in the flesh. He had sunburns. He had blisters. You know when you walk through a door and you stub your pinky? He experienced that kind of pain. He experienced a whole lot worse. He experienced rejection. His friends turned on him. But Jesus saw Matthew for who he really was. So Jesus, he was putting together, it's a ragtag group of guys. I mean, they were rough. They're a rough bunch. He did not pick the scholars. He didn't pick the Bible scholars. He didn't pick the people who had it all together. He picked people who were normal, regular, everyday people who had a ton of problems, who had a rough past. He hung out with those people. But Jesus goes to Matthew and he says the same thing to Matthew that he's saying to some of us right now, and in the past he said to us. And Jesus comes to Matthew in his tax collector booth as the one person in the world who loves him. And he says, "Follow me." He says, "Follow me" to Matthew. And Matthew has a choice to make. I'm sure the Romans wouldn't be too happy if he just left his stuff behind, but he didn't care about the consequences. He didn't have everything figured out. I'm sure he had questions, but what he did do was know that Jesus saw something in him and that Jesus was worth following. And so right now I'm going to lead us in a prayer. And before I do that, I just want to real quick go back to Jesus and talk about salvation a little bit. You see, it's okay to have questions. You will have questions about faith until you're 80 and 90 and 100 years old, until you leave this world and go to heaven and get to ask God himself your questions. Questions aren't bad. Questions are normal. They're good. It's because God gave you an amazing brain. But I want to let you know that there is a person who knew you before you were born, who has numbered the hairs on your head, who knows everything you've ever gotten wrong, done wrong, said wrong, and he's crazy enough to love you anyway. In fact, he died for you. And so I want to go ahead, I'm going to lead you through this prayer. I would like everyone to repeat after me and say it aloud. Let's go ahead and bow our heads, close our eyes. Dear Jesus, I love you. Thank you for dying for me. I admit that I'm a sinner. I need a Savior. I believe you died on the cross for my sins. I believe you rose again. I choose to follow you. Wherever you lead me, whatever it costs me, I choose you. Jesus, come into my life. Teach me how to live. Teach me how to love. Help me to be the good I wish to see in the world. Amen. Okay, cool. Now everybody keep your heads down, eyes closed. I want to give anybody the opportunity to let me know who just accepted Jesus into their heart. I want to know so I can connect with you. It's not going to be weird. I'm not going to bring you up here and tell your life story, and I'm not going to bash you like I bashed Matthew. I'm not going to do that. I just want you to look up on the count of 3 and make eye contact with me to let me know the decision that you just made, because it's the best decision you'll ever make in your entire life, but also it helps to have a person there in the fight with you. So on the count of 3, I would like you to look up at me. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Cool. All right. Everybody look up. All right.